They looked at me like I was a total moron. There were two kids, really bright, talking about how air resistance is the thing that stops objects falling at different rates. I thought it sounded stupid, and I remember trying to figure it out. I was almost arguing with them to try and get it, not quite understanding. Turns out I was wrong. I didn't know it at the time. I remember the look that these guys gave each other, that I was the idiot. The thing was, I left school barely able to read and write. I remember going on my Facebook, looking at some of the posts that I'd written in the past, and just how embarrassing it was to see I didn't know the alphabet. And I remember my first girlfriend was trying to teach me. I didn't even know the months of the year. As I started going out into the world, improving myself and meeting new and different types of people, this lack of education and understanding of the world became painfully clear. I met these kids that all went to grammar school. They had money, they had girls, they had all the social skills. And there was me. They were everything that I wasn't. This gap was costing me a lot in my social interactions. People in my situation would blame the system and they'd blame their background. I had a druggy, abusive dad. We were brought up with conspiracy theories, the world was going to end. I was told that by the time I was 16, I'd be rounded up and put in a concentration camp. So why even learn all of this stuff? It's deep. And you know, from this really unstable background, why would I go into educating myself or learning these things? Troubled home, you're just gonna play up and be a kid. But here's the thing, right? These educated kids with good lives, they still had the things that I wanted. I could just blame everybody for me not having them. Blaming others doesn't change it. I was still an outsider looking in. And how many years did I waste feeling like this in my early 20s, not knowing just how easily it was all within my grasp? Every conversation felt like walking through a minefield. There were things that everybody seemed to know and grasp that I just didn't. All the social nuances, how the world worked. I just felt like I was totally inadequate. So at the time, I'm drowning in anxiety. I'm really struggling with life. I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. I'm doing a job that I hate and life is pretty miserable. My ex-girlfriend gives me a book. It's called Happiness is a State of Mind. I was in a really desperate place and I did something that most people don't do. I actually read the book and I actually applied the principles. And an amazing thing happened. It changed my life. I started practicing meditation and some of these practices from the book, and I started to feel happy and more at ease with the world. I could calm my anxiety, control my negative feelings. I started to get control of my mind. It took a while, you know, it wasn't magical, but this skill compounded over time. Here's where things got very interesting for me. Because all the things I'd learned from this book, I felt massively empowered. I felt like, well, if I'd learned these stuff and applied it and it actually changed my life, what else out there could there be that I can read and apply to my life and change things that I'm experiencing? So I found more books. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Natural by Richard Ruina. Richard recommends Alan Watts. I started reading Alan Watts. This changed my life. It added peace, it added structure, it made things make sense to me. When I was struggling, I'd listen to Alan Watts, and then I fell in love with philosophy. And then I noticed more links. Richard Ruina, he learned all these social skills and then went off to become a very successful entrepreneur. Other guys that I'd read, they also went off and started businesses. All of these people seem to have this trait where they would learn to learn, and then that would compound and create massive changes in their lives. I decided just to follow their paths. These people had figured it out. They were like me. They walked it and they told me exactly what they did. A to B, how to get there. And I started applying it to my own life. And it worked. Within months, my relationships at work totally changed. My relationships with dating, meeting women, going out and making friends, how I felt about myself and how I showed up every single day on almost every metric changed. Not because anything in the external world had changed, but because I changed my mind. One common thing in all of these people is that when they had a problem, they found a solution. Every book opens doors to more books. Every skill that you learn reveals the next skill that you need to learn. Over time, it gets bigger and bigger, but you get more able to deal with the challenges. You start off on level 1, you're then ready for level 2. It might be difficult, but you're now ready for level 3. At each time, it gets harder, but you then have the skills from the levels before. And before you know it, you're climbing the levels. You notice one thing that addresses a problem. You apply it, and then you notice the next thing that you need to learn, and the next. Most people never start because questioning is uncomfortable. It takes effort. But staying comfortable means also staying stuck. But the ones who get curious are the ones that solve the problems. Arnie, my favorite action hero, absolute badass, was exactly the same. He was brought up in a poor Austrian village, and he taught himself everything he knew. He put in the time, the effort, and the work, and became a governor of California. The movies, he built millions before he even went into the movies. That guy was an absolute machine. But the same principle, he had this thirst for knowledge and kept educating, sending himself to university, starting his own businesses, trying from the bottom and working his way up. They're not special people. These are just people that refuse to stay stuck despite the circumstances that they were in. And here's the sad part that most people don't get. Life is a race. It doesn't matter if you sign up for it because you're in it. You can't escape. You know, some people have all the advantages. They've got good educations, they've got good parents, they've got good upbringings, they've got connections, and you might have nothing. But self-education is the one thing that changes everything. It's your navigation, it's your ability to adapt, and your ability to solve problems. And there's not one single area of your life that it can't improve. I've worked with people professionally who've been in the industry for 40, 50 years who are total numpties. It doesn't take much to overtake the average person. You just need to be curious, observant, and start asking questions. I learned that most people don't actually know what they're talking about. They get through the world with an air of authority that makes them look like they know what they're doing. But most people are making it up as they go along. They really don't evaluate or think about the things that they do. They're just following patterns. They do things because they've always been done that way. They don't think outside the box. And this taught me something crucial, that the bar is incredibly low. It might not look like that from the outside because people don't know how to step over it. But if you're willing to learn, you have an absolutely unfair advantage over most people out there. Because most people stop learning when they leave school. They get their degrees and then that's where they peak. They get good at remembering and repeating, but they never understand the principles. They don't develop a real understanding of the world. But you, if you're watching this, you might not have had those advantages of education. You might not have had the advantages of being brought into the right system. And that's actually an advantage. There's a quote I'm going to paraphrase by John D. Rockefeller. It says, "I envy the man who has to fight for a foundation in life." And the same thing with Arnold. He says that he noticed in his kids, they got brought into privilege. They had all the opportunities in the world. He said the one thing that he noticed is that they never had that hunger. He said that from his background, that gave him the hunger to do things that these people couldn't do. And this is the better path, because when you have to teach yourself, you learn to learn. And that skill compounds. If you're serious about developing these skills, you're not happy just watching YouTube videos. I've developed a whole system over 9 years of experimenting that packages all this knowledge into a nice, clear system. Reach out below. Now, I need to be very honest. Most people don't say this. Most people will sell you the dream. It doesn't make money telling you that this is hard work, but sadly it is. There are no hacks, there are no shortcuts for actually doing the work. You will spend years on this and probably the rest of your life. It becomes a practice. It's something that you do every day, not something that you do once and then shut off. This is reading, applying what you know, failing, adjusting, reading and reapplying, a rinse and repeat, reps like in the gym. I've read books on things, gone out there and failed on my ass. For years, I was dating, doing pickup stuff, meeting girls, and then I got into my first real relationship after years, and it fell flat on its ass. Because at the end of the day, all the reading in the world doesn't prepare you for reality, and this is where the real magic happens. Because real knowledge only comes from applying the principles. It's through failing and doing the reps repeatedly. Here's the reverse of that. If you don't do these things, you are forever stuck. You're trying to race with broken equipment while everyone else is out there upgrading, and you will get left behind, pretending you know what you're doing. And the cost isn't just money. It's time, it's energy, it's respect, it's opportunities you don't even know you're missing because you can't see them. I wasted years feeling inadequate when I had everything that I actually needed. The books existed, the information was out there. I just didn't know what mattered. I wasn't wise enough to know what I needed to know. And how much are you missing out on? And how much are you not seeing because you're operating on bad information, stuff that you haven't upgraded or that you've carried on from the troubled parts of your life? Just thinking back to that course I was doing at the start, they looked at me like I was an idiot because I was an idiot. And I couldn't see that I was an idiot. It could have confirmed everything that I believed about myself. I could have created an identity and thought, well, I am just an idiot, and continued the rest of my life like a buffoon. But instead it became a catalyst. It was a moment that I was like, oh, I need to figure this out, because I didn't want to live like that. I wanted to live the best life possible. And once you realize this gap exists from where you are and where you want to be, you have a choice. You can pretend that it doesn't matter and just pretend that there's people out there making great lives are actually just more privileged than you, or they got opportunities that you couldn't get. You can blame the systems, your childhood, your family, what went wrong, or you can just actually do something about it. The information that changes lives, it's not hidden, it's not for a select few. It is literally sitting in libraries for free, everywhere, all around the world. The internet has everything you could ever need to know. It's in the books that people recommend, and it's in the patterns that you notice in successful people. But what separates people that transform from people that stay stuck is the ones that transform actually do something with what they've learned. They apply it and they live it long enough that it actually becomes part of them. You literally become your environment. You are what you eat and you are what you read, listen to and see. You become what you consume and practice daily. The question isn't whether self-education works, it's whether you're willing to put in the time and the energy and the effort to do it. To look stupid asking questions, to read the boring books that everyone says change their lives. Because if you do that consistently, your navigation improves, problems become easier, and the race becomes manageable. The life that privileged people have, the status, the money, the girls, the friends, the lifestyle, the things that we all want, it's there for everybody and the doors open up. But you have to build it yourself and then you have to walk through the door. 97% of people that don't like, comment, subscribe, engage. If you have found value in this, please help me out by giving me a like, comment, subscribe, whatever you feel like. Engage with me, let me know you're there. And if you want the self-education frameworks that I've mentioned, reach out to me below, check out the newsletter, have a good day, stay connected and smash it. Catch you later. Boom.